She pretend to cry.
Within a year, my team disappeared. Got a phone call on the 4th of July. My dad died, he committed suicide. It should have been there for me. Had to fly home.
What's up, y'all? This is Brother Ali. And happy and excited to be saying that I'm in Seattle, Washington, putting the finishing touches on a new album. Name of the album is Mourning in America and Dreaming in Color. And produced entirely by my friend Jake One. I made all my projects with Ant. He's done everything that I've ever released except for my demo tape that I brought to Rhymesayers years ago. Ant is obviously half of Atmosphere, and they released 2 albums last year and have been on tour ever since then. So, you know, normally the way we work is we find some kind of way to for me to come off tour around the time that they're taking a break, so me and Ant make an album. And then right around the time I'm finishing, then he starts with Atmosphere, and then I go on the road, they go on the road. But we just missed each other this time. It just wasn't in the cards this time. I've known Jake since 2000, like really before very many people knew who either one of us were. So we just stayed in touch the whole time. And he made some music that I really loved. I made some music that he thought he could do better. So we just always kept in touch. We always talked about doing something, and then just the timing just never was really right. We probably made songs for a few months before we really realized that we were gonna do an album, and this was gonna be the album. You know, not a side project, but my new album. And it ended up really being good for me because to work in the same setting all of the time doesn't always force you to think in new ways and work in new ways, create in new ways, and say new things. Last thing you want to do is get comfortable in something that works. You know, the minute you stop growing and evolving and changing, you can't really call yourself an artist anymore. You're just you're just doing a job at that point. Like, you're just repeating at that point. So me and Anthony will definitely always make music together forever. You know, that's one of my best friends in life. And you know, we've already talked about the project that we're gonna do next, but this was a really great thing for me. I think it's exactly what I needed at this point. And hopefully when you hear the music, you'll feel the same way.
Working on a whole record like this just gives me a chance to show the different things I do. You know, I think the cool thing was I made beats tailor-made for him. I never do that for anybody really. And he actually recorded them, and they turned out to be records that made the album. So there's probably like 3 or 4 like that. So I thought that was kind of cool, and those are some of the most important songs.
You know, the key for all of my albums is everybody does this, but it's extremely important to me to make albums that make a statement, partially because of the fact that every time I do make a record, that I tour that album non-stop for a few years. And so the album that I make and the statement that I make with it, I have to live that statement for 2 years and really forever. Like, really, that's part of your book forever. That's a chapter in your book for the rest of your life. But especially for the few years that it is. So I need for my albums to have a message behind them and have an energy behind them that I want to live out and that I want to, like, really, you know, put in the world and be involved with. And they also have always really kind of lined up with what's going on in my life. And I feel like I always make my best music in times when there's change, like when things aren't stable and things aren't steady. And in 2010, I had one of those years, like similar to the one when I made Shadows on the Sun, similar to when I made Undisputed Truth. There's like certain years where everything changes and it's like things aren't right and normal and easy. Like, there's a lot of unrest. In 2010, I was on the road for 10 out of 12 months. And none of the people that I was used to working with were able to still work. You know, when you're on the road for 10 months, the people on the road with you are your family as much, if not more, than your family. And for one reason or another, all of these people, our lives just took us in different directions. So my DJ, my tour manager, my producer, my hype man, my merch guy, all of the people in my camp, for whatever reason, just weren't able to be out with me at that time. Also, we all know that my great friend Idea passed away while I was on the road, and had to fly home and bury a great friend of mine. My father died when I was in Europe. I had to fly home and deal with that, and then went right back to the road, and these things, that does something to you, and at the same time, in the world, in America and in the world, like we're in a really, really, really dark time, and I think there's a general feeling of how bad things are, but things are extraordinarily bad. You look at just the situation for people's money and people on a personal level, even just the way that people feel about life. There's a lot of darkness and a lot of pain in the world right now. So I had this really rough year, and the world was really dark. So I figured I'm gonna make an album called Mourning in America, M-O-U, or like to mourn, like you're at a funeral and you're mourning. Because this had all of this heavy shit going on around me. But at the end of that year, I went and made Hajj. I made my pilgrimage to Mecca. Like literally, Idea's funeral was one day, that night I packed and left for Mecca the next day, and spent a month in Mecca and having the most amazing experience of my life. Like it's like the day your kids are born, but it lasts for a month. You know what I mean? And then when I got back from that, I stayed home for a year. Like this whole year I did 5 shows. Which is like, I haven't done that, in 10 years I've been touring or whatever. And spent that time, obviously, so I had this personal kind of like light at the end of that tunnel. But then when I got home and had all this time, I got time to like do the things in the community that I want to do. Got to do the things with my kids that I've always wanted to do. Got time to read books I always want to read. Like all of this shit I always say, whenever I get a break, I'm going to do this and this and this. And man, from being out here and working with people, and particularly kids, just gave me a feeling that like in this dark time, there's really a lot of opportunity, and that there are people whose hearts have almost been purified by this thing. Like they take steel and they put it in fire to burn off the impurities, and I feel like that's happened. Like good people in times like this, like people that still have really genuine, sincere hearts, like times like these bring out the best in them. And you see, like we had the Arab Spring, where all over the world, in Egypt and Syria and Libya, like all throughout the world, people are getting together, rising up, throwing off their dictators. We have this Occupy movement that's going on across America. There's Occupy movements even in Europe and in Asia and other parts of the world. So then I said, no, I'm not going to make an album called Mourning in America, because, that's too dark. That's too depressing. I always want my music to be about hope. Not optimism, like don't worry, it'll be okay, but hope, like the idea that like if you're willing to make the sacrifices, then you can make shit better for ourselves in the world. And so I'm gonna make an album called Dreaming in Color. And then the more I thought about it, the more I went through it, the more I realized it's not either or. You know what I mean? It's these two things happen at the same time, and that's really what life is about. And that's particularly what my life and what American life is about right now. Mourning in America and dreaming.